All right, what do we want to do first? Do you want to do Deebo's tweets first? We're recording this Tuesday. He did the tweets on Monday, and he deleted the most egregious of the two tweets. Let's start there because I can't think of a worse time for a player a struggling player to take to social media to deny that he's struggling. He has deleted the tweet, so I'm tracking it down right now, but I want to make sure and read it for anybody who might have missed it or might have forgotten. He said, quote, "Not struggling at all, just not getting the ball," with 7 exclamation points and a shrugging emoji. That tweet has now been deleted. Man, we've talked about this before on this pod. He's struggling. It's okay. Pretending like it's because he's not getting the ball is silly.
Right. The idea that he's not getting the ball, particularly, I think it's a tough look after the Packers game when he has a pass go through his hands that gets intercepted. That ended up being a pretty critical play in that game. Not that it ever felt like the 49ers were going to win that game, but
sure.
At that point in the first half, it was a close game. And you could not be having Deebo Samuel have a pass go through his hands and get intercepted. So it's a little bit tough from that perspective. Deebo's always had issues with drops. Even in 2021, he had the highest drop rate of his career. I think it was 12% of his passes was looking around on PFF today. But the biggest thing, even aside from just the number of targets he's getting, it's the missed tackles numbers. It's the yards per route run. It's everything. Like, the numbers are way down across the board, and it's noticeable. And it's not a situation where, he's being really efficient when he does get the ball. It's that when he does get the ball, it looks dramatically worse than it has in recent years.
That's
and
it.
Again, and I'm not saying, I think his lack of production is one of many things that's gone wrong for the 49ers this year. But I think, and I understand he's a competitor and, he's very clearly online, and I would understand that he wouldn't really enjoy seeing people talk about his lack of production, like he's falling off, and he's probably got people in his mentions saying way worse stuff than, "Hey, your production's down," right? Like,
hey, your yards per route run aren't awesome right now, Deebo.
Right. It's probably a little bit worse than that. So I can understand him wanting to lash out, but no, it's not about targets, man. It's not about your usage in the offense. It's about the fact that you're not breaking tackles like anything like you have in really any other year in your career.
Right.
And you certainly don't look like the player who was single-handedly, it felt like, carrying the 49ers in 2021 when they were in a similar position, but they actually did battle back to make the playoffs, where, now it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
I think that one of the things, because typically people that are on the internet and saying things on the internet, and I'm going to get away from, I'm sure that there are people saying the most vile shit you've ever heard in your life to him, and that is separate. Those are bad people, and I'm not addressing those people. I'm addressing people who may not even be mentioning Deebo Samuel, who may be saying his name, and maybe it gets sent to him, or maybe he searches his name, or whatever it is, or maybe he just follows people
to this podcast.
Could listen to this pod. I doubt it, but if he does, salute, appreciate it. My guess is he sees because people cite just like the numbers. You can go to profootballreference.com and you can go, he only has this many rushing yards, he only has this many receiving yards, he only has this many touchdowns. And if you're doing counting stats, yeah, his touches are down this year. He's averaging 6 touches a game this year. It was 6.5 last year. It was 7.5 the year before that. But that's just putting empirical data to what people are watching. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. I can give you the PFF numbers. You mentioned it. Yards per route run, career low. Missed tackles forced, career low, both as a runner and as a receiver. Yards after catch per reception, career low. It just, the numbers are there, but it's not that. It's what people are watching. You can just see that, man, hey, Deebo Samuel, when he touches the ball, is just not as explosive, not as electric. Pick your favorite adjective. You don't even need the numbers. I was at the game. I was at the game in the stands with my mom on Sunday. And when Deebo would line up in the backfield or motion into the backfield, people in my section are like, "Oh no." So like this is not, and I promise those people aren't like, "Oh, his yards after contact per carry is career low." Like, no, they're just watching. So I don't think it's an opportunity thing. And I think the opportunities are down as a result of his struggles, not vice versa.
Yeah, like the Niners are facing more man coverage this year than they have in years past. Their average separation is the lowest in the league.
Dude.
Deebo has never really been known to be a separator against man coverage. I think people would argue that a reason why Juwan Jennings is having a great season is because he's the 49ers' best man coverage receiver. And given that they're facing more man coverage, that's where Brock Purdy's looking, right? So there's just no evidence that it's just purely, oh, he's just not getting targeted. Like, and that's definitely some of it, but I think we just got to call a spade a spade. Like his production's down, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look the same when he gets the ball, and so
That's it.
he shouldn't get the ball as often as he has in the past. Particularly when you have Juwan Jennings playing at a high level and George Kittle playing at a high level, and frankly, like when it's when Kyle Shanahan and his offense are going well, very rarely is it more than one or two guys that are really like going off, right? Like the Niners are at their peak last year and in other seasons. They were liable to have, it could be Kittle one game, it could be Deebo one game, it could be, Christian McCaffrey, obviously, but like rarely, or Brandon Ayuk, but rarely was it like a bunch of guys with 150 yards in a single game, right? It's like one guy goes off and then other guys have decent numbers, but it's not often where you're going to get three or four guys with like huge numbers. And in the Bears game last week, it was Kittle and it was Jennings
Mm-hmm.
and Garendo to a certain extent, right? But it wasn't, Deebo just happened to be fourth in that pecking order. And so like I think it's okay for Deebo to have a little bit of self-awareness and be like, yeah, it's not, I understand why he's frustrated, but like
Totally.
to tweet this is not productive. I don't think it's correct. But I also don't think it's like, I don't think people in the locker room are going to be like looking at him sideways and be like, dude, what are you talking about? And I don't think
Right.
anybody in the building, like, I don't think Brock Purdy or Juwan Jennings are like going to take it personally. I don't think Kyle Shanahan
No.
really cares that much. This isn't like locker room cancer type stuff, in my opinion. I just think it's kind of needless. And it's like, dude, just have a little bit of self awareness and understand that, yeah, your production's down.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe focus on what you need to do to get your production back up instead of
Sure.
changing some opinions on a social media app.
Sure. I wonder if anybody read that who thought Deebo was struggling was like, oh, damn, good point, Deebo.